The Mind Over Chatter podcast. The Mind Over Chatter podcast with Oz and Hogg. The Mind Over podcast. The Mind Over Chatter podcast with Oz and Hogg.
Okay, here we are, episode 7 of Mind Over Chatter with myself, David Ozzy Borge, and of course, you know, this guy, Andrew Hogg.
Hi.
We like to do this podcast for a number of reasons. We like to get to know people, but we also like to discuss life in general, successes and failures, and also mental health. As people know, I think both of us have a connection with the mental health space, from different angles, of course, but we both have it. And that's what we like to discuss here on the podcast. It's a bit of a special one today, episode 7, because Andrew Hogg is going to be the host and I am going to be the guest, right? That's what we're doing, no?
Something along those lines.
So you're going to be asking me a bunch of questions and I'm going to answer openly and honestly.
Yeah.
And we're going to dig deep, right?
Yeah.
Have you gone deep with your preparation, the questions?
I have.
I'm an open book, I told you.
Yeah, in fact...
Am I going to cry? Maybe.
I may.
We can get no tissues. Mike, did you get tissues?
Yeah.
Bro,
He's got a throw it. We've got a roll of kitchen paper just in case. Thank you, Mike.
You cry in movies?
No, I get choked up. I don't actually get to the crying part. My eyes will well up.
Which was...
And I get the thing, but...
We saw a movie lately, and it was something to do with a lighthouse and a little girl, and her dad was the guy who used to, he used to run the lighthouse, and when boats used to get stuck in whatever, get in trouble, he would go out save it. So they had a great bond, and I have 2 little girls, and for me, the bond between me and my girls is something that I always wanted. I always wanted girls, and I mean, fathers who have girls, I suppose, can understand.
So you started crying.
And
you got well.
Bro, I was bored. Sabrina was looking at me like, "What the hell is up with this guy?" and basically, the dad goes away and he never comes back.
Oh man!
There's a storm and he ends up drowning. And she goes to live with the uncle, and the uncle. It's a beautiful film. But these movies, even cartoons, these cartoons get to me.
I get sure. There's one film that fucked with me big. Fucking Marley and Me. Did you ever see Marley and Me?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't have dogs. I am not I'm not so much of a pet person.
Yeah.
So that connection, of course, it chokes me up. But
I cry when I'm spoiling it here, but I don't really care because it's like I'm a movie from 15 years ago. The dog dies in the end, and I was like, "Why did the fucking dog die? Why did the dog?" I was like crying. But I get when there's a sad movie, when there's a really family-orientated movie, I get really choked up and emotional, and even inspirational.
exactly,
I'm like, why am I almost crying? And I almost cry with these inspirational movies.
yeah. There was a movie also recently, something Spirit, about a true story about an Australian girl, 16 years old, I think, and she
sailed the world. I haven't seen it yet.
And at the end of it was just like, wow. I mean, then the good thing about these movies is, okay, we have this kind of Friday or Sunday afternoon movie, family time, whatever, and then we discuss them.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
We sit down and we have a discussion about
with the girls,
yeah.
Wow,
so kind of, what have you learned? You can have a pink sailing. No, Alice, not you can have a pink sailing boat. Like, what have you learned about this girl? What did she do?
Wow. I have a movie suggestion for you to do this with your girl.
Tell me.
Goodfellas. Don't tell me you don't know what Goodfellas is, man.
That's mafia, no?
Yeah. Obviously, I was joking, but I'd like to see that conversation with the girls afterwards. That would be pretty nice.
Yeah.
Not good parenting, though. So no, don't do it. Don't do it.
So I heard that you have a fantastic story something that happened yesterday.
I was so fucking stressed out yesterday, man. So stressed out. So one of our cats has an adventurous spirit, and occasionally goes out and doesn't come back for a couple of days. So this cat, we hadn't seen her since Sunday morning.
And is that family panic, or?
It starts off with daughter panic, and then it turns into family panic. And by yesterday afternoon, she had still not returned home. So 36, 40 hours. So we started doing the usual canvassing the area, listening for noises, because she goes on rooftops and then she gets stuck somewhere.
Okay.
And
What's the name of the cat, just so that I can,
cat's
for
name
context?
is Harley.
Harley.
Harley,
So you're
yes.
walking around the bush,
Zurich.
Zuri, calling out Harley.
Calling out, so my daughter was going, Harley, and I'm going, doing all that sort of stuff, and we go around, we didn't hear or find anything. And then my son sort of started to feel bad. He's like, I'm going to go around and do a walk myself. And he came back, I can hear her. And we went around, my wife and him went around looking to try and identify. And at first they thought they were in this little chapel next to. So she went to the archpriest and he came with the keys and they went in the chapel. They realized it wasn't from a chapel, it was from one of the houses behind. And then they found which house it was. They knocked, nobody was there. Then they found one of the neighbors and the neighbors said, no, listen, this woman is a bit, she doesn't answer the door to anyone. In the meantime, we had called the police and everything to try and find out. And the police actually told us, no, we know this woman, we can't do anything. She doesn't answer, So we said, stop. Anyway, this neighbor, my wife had gone, and in the little courtyard of this neighbor, above there was a ledge to the other house. And that's where the cat was. But she couldn't get up. And then the neighbor had to go to take care of her mother who had dementia, right? So we basically could not get in this house to try and rescue the cat last night. And you could hear the cat going at it constantly, So I was like frustrated, heartbroken, everything. And the way that I release is I lose my temper. I'm not very proud of it, but I punch things, shout, act like an imbecile. I don't like it. I'm not proud of it, but some people cry, some people can talk. I immediately go from, this is frustrating to me, boom,
To rage.
And that's how I was yesterday. And I was in the streets. Basically, we're being honest, right? I hit myself in the head a couple of times, because if I don't, I'm going to do something to someone else. So I have to do it. That's the way I am. I have to, if I don't release, something bad will happen. It's happened to me in the past a few times, and I've learned now that it's better to turn it on myself or hit some inanimate object than to do something stupid. So yeah, that happened, and so not a great night's sleep, both my wife and me, and well, I had the help of some pharmaceuticals, so I slept a bit better. But I woke up this morning and we said, let's go see again. And thankfully we got there, and the neighbor was there, and she said, I got you a ladder. She had got, how sweet, hey? She had got us a ladder. I went up on the ladder, couldn't get the cat, but she said, go upstairs, you might be able to get it from this window. And eventually we got the fucking goddamn cat that I want to stab.
And she was okay.
And she was, well, a bit traumatized, but yeah, okay.
I think you have to teach her a bit more better survival instincts. And
I think I have to get rid of her. Causing me too much stress. That's I'm not going to do it, obviously, because my daughter will get rid of me. But oh, man.
I mean, the cat doesn't like literally rip up the house. I remember when my sister decided to bring a cat home. We were young, and literally this cat just ripped up all our sofas.
Oh, they do that the thing with the nails, right? Now, the sofa that we have is anti-clawing.
I wasn't aware that you could buy an
anti-clawing. You can buy an anti-clawing one, yeah. So they don't do it, but they usually do that when they're young. But
they charge you like 200 euros more or something like that.
Yeah.
Anti-claws.
Probably like 1,000 euros more. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. No, I prefer the catless lifestyle. I mean, my kids have been asking me for a dog for ages.
Don't do it.
No.
Okay. We have 2 cats and a dog. My wife told me, bless her, she's so sweet. She's always thinking about me. She told me, I think you should get a dog. It can be a support dog. I've heard so much about these support dogs and whatever. Not knowing that support dogs are specifically trained to deal with the emotions and feelings of the owner. Instead, we got a dog we didn't even do our research. We went to rescue it from the Gozo SPCA. And it was just so cute. And when we went there, it was so quiet, just sitting there. All the other dogs were going crazy. This dog was really, really quiet. And we said, okay, that's the one. And we took this dog home. And in the first couple of weeks, really sweet, timid, getting used to everything or whatever. And then it turned into a monster.
Oh, yeah?
Sweet monster, but a monster nonetheless. Energy, it's a cross Dalmatian, and Dalmatians are one of the most energetic breeds you can get. It's
They're a
very
bit dumb as well, though, no?
Yeah, not super intelligent, but not on the very far dumb scale either. Somewhere in the middle, I think.
So which would be the dumbest dog?
Dumbest dog? I don't know.
The Maltese dog.
Which one? The Maltese Terrier?
Oh, I'm joking.
Or some of those Maltese dogs that frequent Patcherville. Is that the ones you're talking about, Mike? I don't know. I don't know
you would know.
dumbest dogs. But I know, like, for example, Jack Russell's one of the smartest dogs.
Okay.
And there's a lot of different smart breeds. But anyway, so we have these pets and they constantly stress me out instead of making me feel better. And I know for a fact now, and unfortunately we only got the dog 18 months ago, so we have another 10 years with the dog. After that, never pets again, ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
I
Don't do it, ever.
So,
Yes. Go on then. Here we go.
I've known you for, let's say, 6-7 years now. Okay. And I feel that we know each other, I mean, a decent amount, but I don't know you, even though we've set up this podcast together kind of thing. And it's, like, I like the vibe that we've created, also the banter in between, you know. No, I honestly, I genuinely like having someone like you in my life. And, you know, as I said last time, you're a bit like an older brother to me.
Thank you, man.
But I don't know the young girls, right? All I know more or less is that you grew up in the shady streets of Oz, living the gangster life.
Wouldn't go as far as that, but it was pretty rough area, yeah.
Okay.
Pretty rough area. What do you want to know, my brother? I'm an open book.
Yeah, so tell me a bit more. Like, tell me, were you the popular kid in school? Were you the joker? Were you always this big character?
So, I was very awkward in school, and I, because of the situation that I had going on at home, which was not great, I acted out a lot. And I tried to be the clown, but it wasn't the sort of clown. We actually had discussed this when we had Kevin Nowdy on, you know. He was a bit of a clown too, but his was a bit different. He was a clown in the sense of, I want to make people happy. And my clownship was acting out, trying to get attention. And it worked against me, obviously, right? So people would say, this guy is always so intense, he's always messing about, he's always doing this. So it made it very difficult for me to engage with people back then. Luckily, I had a very small group of great friends. So that was very, very helpful. But school, look, the total honesty is my whole upbringing was a shit show. My whole youth, from the moment I can remember till the moment I left the shackles of my mother at the age of 20, well, for good, the age of like 22, 23 was a shit show.
So you've always been very open about your struggles with complex PTSD, and from the research that I've done, I now know that it usually comes from childhood, right?
Yeah.
And maybe, I mean, you just mentioned the shackles of my mom.
Yeah.
Could you go a bit deeper into that?
Well, my mom was an alcoholic for the whole time I ever knew her. And she wasn't an alcoholic who would drink and then have fun. She was a totally raging, depressed alcoholic. She was drunk, I think, nearly every day of my life. Wow. She would wake up in the morning at 5 o'clock and have a drink. That's how bad her alcoholism was. She passed away a few years ago, just so you know. And it was a miracle of science that she lasted to 75.
Wow.
Because of the abuse that she did to her body over the years. Alcoholic for her whole life, chain smoker for her whole life, all these sort of things. So, yeah, she was a depressed, raging alcoholic. She would start drinking early in the morning. She would, by the time the evening came, it was a disaster. She would be breaking things, crying, smashing things. It was every day, every single day.
How early did you, in your childhood, do you remember this?
4 or 5, yeah.
Okay.
Before my dad left for his own sanity, that I found out in the end. My dad left when I was 7, but I remembered 2 or 3 years preceding that, just the constant fights and violence from my mother, and shouting, and me and my brother and my sister just. Well, my brother was very young and still a baby, but me and my sister just sort of cowering in a corner, staying in our bedroom under the sheets, just waiting, trying to wait for it, hoping it'll blow over, all that sort of stuff. So there was like massive drama every single day in our house. There were a few very small periods in the 22 years, a month here, a month there, where she tried to stop. And ultimately, when she did, she was a wonderful human being. But the disease was too big for her. She was just too addicted. She had a very severe mental health problems. And she drank, obviously, to try and quiet the demons. And that just, wreaked havoc.
Yeah, obviously back then there wasn't so much awareness around mental health and where to reach out and stuff like that.
Not at all. Yeah.
Did she? I mean, was there any element of her trying to reach out to seek help, therapy, or?
She got locked up a couple of times.
Seriously?
Yeah, she got locked up a couple of times. So the first time, and honestly, the best 6 to 9 months of my childhood were when we were taken away from her. She was locked up in an institution.
And you were placed where?
With my father.
Okay.
And it was 9 months of relative normality. He'd wake up in the morning with us. I mean, my dad is my dad. He's not the most amorous of persons, He's not the lovey-dovey type. He's what you might call a man's man.
Yeah.
But he would wake up in the morning, he would get our lunch sorted, he would drive us to school, he would pick us up from school, make sure we had dinner, help with any homework. We lived in a really nice house with a really great view out the back. It was just a normal life. And then 9 months later, the authorities turned up on my dad's doorstep and said, we're taking the kids back to the mom. And that was how the system was back then. Very heavily weighted towards the mother. Unless the father was a serial killer, the kid stayed with the mom. And that was it. And I have very strong feelings about the lack of, what's the word I'm looking for? Attention to the children in this situation. Just go back with the mom, knowing the history, which was constant. It's going back with the mum. So she was institutionalized a couple of times, and we were moved out a couple of times. We stayed in a foster situation for a very short period of time.
In terms of traumatic experiences, and this, I mean, only answer if you feel comfortable answering.
I'm open, man.
So you were exposed to constant arguments, constant alcoholism, right? What else in terms of traumatic experiences do you think that really affected the situation you're dealing with today?
So besides what I like to call the little stuff, which was all the baggage that came with my mum, there were a few other instances that were quite serious in terms of how it affected my mental health over the years. There was an instance when I was about 12 or 13. It happened a couple of times where I lived in an area that there was a lot of sort of little child gangs around. Okay. I wasn't associated with any of them, but they were there. And a lot of the time I would have to get off the bus and run home to try and avoid these sort of things. And a couple of times...
You were in good shape back then?
I was in very good shape back then, yeah.
Cool.
Not too bad. Oh, very good. I was all right. Yeah. There was a period of time we'll get to this later, but between 14 and 17, I was in the best shape of my life. I was, metabolism-wise, I've always been a sort of podgy person. I've never been skinny or whatever. I've always been a big framed guy, and I've always had some fat. But between that period, I was in really good shape. I would have to run home, and a couple of times they caught up with me, and give me a bit of a couple of smacks around the head, some punches in the guts, take my brand new Reeboks. Once or twice I got slashed out with knives, that sort of stuff, so it's pretty serious, man. Pretty serious stuff. So these sort of things. And then I think the biggest thing that sort of nailed the coffin in my mental health was something when I was around about 15 years old. I'd taken my mum to a local club. I'd walked there at about midday. She would go and start drinking, obviously. And I came home and I noticed the front door, the glass panel was broken.
Okay.
And I walk in the door and I see someone walking towards me we had a VHS recorder, with the VHS recorder in hand. It was a narrow hallway. The only way he could get out was through me. And we got into a bit of a tussle with a couple of punches thrown.
How old were you?
14 and a half, 15, something like this.
Yeah.
We wrestled, a couple of punches thrown. He got past me and ran out, and that was it. I don't think I was ever the same after that. I think that was sort of like the real big punch in the gut when it came to my mental health. It had all been building up before that, but after that is when my anxiety grew. That's when I think I first realized what anxiety was.
So when you were really young, though,
Mm-hmm.
was there ever a moment where you thought to yourself, "This is the norm"?
Oh yeah, I always thought it was the norm. I didn't make a big deal out of it when I was young. I was obviously, I think the biggest word I can use was I was absolutely ashamed of what was going on at home, and I would try my best to keep it away from everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, none of my friends ever slept at my house. Ever.
Okay.
I would sleep at theirs house. They would never sleep at my house. Obviously, my best friend's parents knew. They could see, right? They're not stupid. They knew what was going on. They tried their best to give me when I was there, a stable environment at least. You know, they knew what was going on. Yeah. What was the question? Because I lost it.
It was about if it was normal for you.
It was absolutely normal, yeah. I didn't know any other way. You know,
Yeah.
I had sort of visited it a few times with friends and that sort of stuff. But for me, it was from the earliest memory until the time when my mum left Malta and went back to Australia. And I was like, must have been 23, 24. And this is the fucked up thing about it all. Throughout my whole upbringing, I took care of her, not she took care of me. I would have, the amount of time, it would happen 2 or 3 times a week where a club or a bar would call me and say, listen, your mum's in a bit of bad shape, you got to come and collect her. You know what I mean? There was a couple of times when we found her passed out in the street.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I would be this 12, 13, 14-year-old basically carrying her home. You know what I mean? It's happened a lot. So, but for me, it was the only thing I knew. There was nothing else. There was that 1 year period with my dad, 9 months, which was normal.
Okay.
But outside of that, for 24 years, that was it.
And I don't know the answer to the question. Is your dad still alive?
My dad is still alive.
And are you still in contact?
We have a better relationship now than we've ever had. And that was because it must have been about a year ago. We would speak once every 2-3 weeks, but it was very shallow, and about a year ago, I started saying, we've got to address this. I told him, Dad, I got to have a conversation with you and you're not going to like it. And he said, let's do it. And we did it. And we spent an hour on the phone and I told him my side of the story. And I told him how upset I was that he abandoned us. And, I told him that, how it was dealing with Mum all these years and how hurtful it was and painful and what it's done to me and what I am today because of it and the pain that I go through today because of it. And he was super cool and he gave me his side of the story. And it was the first time that I really understood that what happened to me also happened to him. But he had the opportunity to escape and he did.
Yeah.
He told me, he said, I tried everything I could to get you guys with me, but that was just the law back then. They stay with the mother. And so yeah, we addressed it. And we had a good open conversation about it, and now our relationship is better. But I told him that we really needed him over the years and he wasn't there. And he admitted it and he apologized and all this sort of stuff, and it felt good.
So does this reinforce your, I don't know if the word is resolve, I mean, when it comes to your family right? To be a constant, to be there. This reinforce the idea of family to you? That you
Yeah.
don't want what happened to you to
1000%. I want my family to be everything that my family wasn't.
in terms of exactly in terms of the experiences and
Yeah, 100%. I mean, unfortunately, and this really hurts my feelings a lot, I've not managed 100% because I've just been, it's going to sound harsh, but I've not been able to overcome my own problems enough to be able to put on the sort of experience for my children that I would have really liked. It's one of the things that hurts me the most. One of the things that hurts me the most that I've still had to carry my own baggage throughout my entire relationship with my wife and children. They've had to see me in pain for all these years, and there are times where I can be jolly, and there are a lot of times when I just can't. And there are times that I'm in my own headspace that I'm unable to be in anybody else's. And that has caused relationships to be not as close as I would have pictured in my dream scenario of I don't want my family to be like my old family was. I didn't manage to achieve it to the level that I would have liked. I mean, I still have a great relationship with my kids and so forth, but harsh reality is that I've just been able to survive all these years. I've been on survival mode. It's not about enjoying life. It's not about appreciating it. It's just about trying to survive every day.
do they understand exactly what you're going through? And has there ever been a moment where you felt that maybe you had to sit down with them and say, listen, I struggle through this and I need you to understand it. It's not you, it's me.
We've had that conversation.
Yeah.
Quite some time ago. I've always tried, when they were really young, no, obviously, but when, my son is 18 now, my daughter's almost 14, I think a couple of years ago, maybe even a year and a half ago, I sat down and I said, listen, guys, it's time you know everything. I didn't go into massive detail, obviously, but I told them about my mum, their grandmother. I told them about all the struggles that I had over the years. I told them about the constant struggles that I still have today. I sort of apologize, not apologize, because there are times where they have to deal with me, obviously, and I wish that wouldn't be the case, but there's just nothing much I can do about it. It's just the way it is. So we've had that conversation, and they are extremely supportive of me, and I can be a complete fucking wanker one day with them all, and the next day they'll be like nothing happened. And that's special.
Yeah.
That's special.
Yeah.
I appreciate that so much. They understand that.
Shows maturity.
Shows maturity, understanding, and compassion more than anything else. They know, they can see when I'm in pain, and I'm not talking about physical pain, although I have those too, but anyway, they can see my emotional pain, and when they do, they just try to be supportive and just give me my space, and that's the important thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just need space to sort of sort it out within my own mind.
Let's go back, okay, to when you were young.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure how I'm going to put this question, but I want you to think a bit. Okay, which was more impactful? Do you think it was the presence of bad in your upbringing, or maybe the absence of good?
Jesus, that's a good question, man. You've got to say equally both. Equally both. I think.
Was the absence of the good something that, I mean, you mentioned that that for you your situation was normalized, but then I want to ask, was the absence of good something that you craved because of what you saw maybe outside of your home?
Okay, so to answer your original question, the presence of bad was far more impactful. The presence of bad. The absence of good is only something I've realized later on in my life. And even now to this day, I still crave the good that I didn't have back then. Not now. I still wish with all of my heart that I had it back then, and it hurts me.
So that's why
a lot.
you accept like my hug so freely, and
Man, I'll take any love I can get. I'm a hugger too.
You're a
I'm
hugger.
I'm a hugger, man.
Yeah.
I love, you know, I do lose the plot, and I have a demon inside me when at times that comes out. But I'm a lover by nature. I hate violence.
Yeah.
I hate violence. I hate confrontation.
Okay.
I love hugs and high fives and all this sort of stuff. You know, that's what I want in my life, and the more I get, the better, for sure.
yeah. Your siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, obviously, I know that your sister passed away.
Sadly, yeah, just a
Lately.
few months ago, yeah,
Okay.
November.
Through all this, everything that was going on, your brother is how old?
My brother's 44. He's like 4.5 years younger than me.
Okay. You are the eldest.
Middle.
You're the middle.
Mm.
Okay. What was the bond between you like during the whirlwind that you were experiencing?
So, first of all, with regards to my sister, may she rest in peace. We didn't have much of a bond, me and my sister. Maybe in the just when I was maybe 7 or maybe 8 or 9. No, wait, bullshit. When I was about 12 or 13 was when we had the best time, me and her, where we bonded the most. She was 16, 17. Just to give you an idea, some context here. So this is another part of the trauma and the life story. My sister was diagnosed with brain cancer at the age of 8. And she spent approximately 6 weeks to 2 months in a hospital where she had major brain surgery, which was successful. But then it returned again when she was 13 or 14. And at that point, she almost died. They had zero hope that she would survive, but somehow she did. So after that point in time when the second surgery happened and she spent another 2-3 months in hospital, after that moment in time, she basically had the attitude that I'm going to live every day like it's my last. And boy, did she do it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, she did whatever she wanted, didn't give. She had a very strong character, didn't take no fucking shit from nobody. Left home when she was 16, so I was like 11, 12 when she left home, something like that.
Did you maintain contact?
Here and there, but not much.
Okay.
Not much.
And when you say she left home, like you guys were in Australia back then,
Mm-hmm.
and what?
She
Literally
moved out, yeah. She moved out.
other side of the country, or
No, she still stayed in the same city.
Okay.
And we still saw her from time to time.
okay,
Yeah, so it wasn't a break off of the relationship, but she, with her own story and the bullshit that we had at home, she just said, fuck this, I'm out of here. And she left. And she went on to, she ran with a rough crowd. I mean, most of her boyfriends, fiancés, the father of her children were all bikers and like, I'm not talking about guys who go for a Sunday cruise, I'm talking about gang guys, really rough people. But that's where she sort of thrived. She was a rough person herself. I mean, she could fight. She was tough. She smacked me around a few times. She was not someone to mess with.
did you feel abandoned the fact that she left?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. All of a sudden, I was dumped at the age of 12, 13 with all the responsibility to take care of my brother, try and shield him as much as I could from the bullshit, and at the same time to pick up the pieces that my mom left in her trail, So yeah. Me and my brother have a very good relationship. And me and my sister had a great relationship. The love was always there. Whenever we connected, the love was always there. But we're from two different worlds, number one. And we were separated by the traumatic foundation of our lives.
Yeah.
And that's
Your brother still lives in Australia?
He still lives in Australia. He lives in Australia.
How does the simple concept of distance make you feel, like with regards to, the attachment, detachment to What's left of your family?
It's hard now. Now it's hard because I was recently back there, of course. You know, my sister was very ill, and I spent the last 2 weeks of her life there with her. And it was both a wonderful and soul-shattering experience at the same time. So it was wonderful because I got to reconnect with my family, and that my family is very much distanced from one another. And the whole family story is the reason for the only thing we really share together is pain. You know, so they were not good experiences growing up. It was all pain. So you try and distance yourself from that, and that's what we've done over the years. But the holiday was great. The trip to Australia was great because I got to connect with everyone. With my dad, you know, I spent some really great time with my dad. I stayed with my brother for the trip, and me and my brother were just on the same wavelength, and we can share a good time. We can discuss things like adults. You know, he's really forged a great life for himself, and we have a good relationship, me and him. But I got to spend time with my sister, even though it was tough, because even in that 2 weeks, she went from being almost normal to dead. In 2 weeks. It was deterioration was crazy. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. It's tough stuff. I got to connect with her children again, you know, and I remember them when they were babies, so I got to connect with her kids. I got to connect with my brother's kids and his wife. I got to connect with my dad's other children, my half-sister and brother.
And how was that?
Look, it's a bit weird. I'm not going to lie. It's a bit weird. And for the longest time, and this may sound a bit bitter, but I was jealous of them.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was jealous, and I was hurt for the fact that they got the good dad and I got the no dad. You know? And so there was that. But no, we get on good now. We get on good, you know. If they ever listen to this, they might be shocked to hear that, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth. They got the good version of my dad, and I got no version of my dad because he wasn't there for most of my life.
Yeah.
And not even in contact. So
let's talk. And I know we touched on it a bit before. Let's talk rage. Okay. How quickly does it come on, and how hard is it for you to control?
I'm a bit better now at controlling it. When I was a teenager, it would come on in an instant. I would just fucking explode instantaneously.
Out of nothing. Out of small things.
Yeah, but it builds up, but it's sort of like, you know, I'm a pacifist, right? I stay in I like to stay to myself. I don't give shit to people. I respect people's space and whatnot. But in return, I just take shit and take shit and take shit, and I don't say anything. I don't stick up for myself. And then after a while, I just boom, I just explode. And so it happened instantaneously back then, and it was very difficult to control, almost impossible to control. Then I got into my 20s, and it was very much the same situation, you know. I would just be the nice guy, take shit, and then boom, it would go again. Nowadays, it's a little bit different. I'm much better at controlling it, but it's more a point of when I get to a situation of emotional distress, it will build up, and then the only thing I can do is release. It's a bit different today, you know. I will just shout or bang my hand on a table or groan savagely for 20 minutes, you know, but nothing too explosive like it used to be. I'd say that. I can control it much better now, but I still feel it there, man.
Okay.
Always. It's like there's a little, somewhere deep inside me, there's a little red switch. And if I know that if something happens the wrong way, or I move the wrong way, or something happens, boom, the switch can go off at any time.
I honestly had never really experienced rage until recently. And
what happened with you?
I was unwell basically, and I was prescribed steroids.
You told me about this, yeah, a bit.
and the steroids really messed with me. And I have very good emotional awareness, and I was simply just washing dishes in the kitchen. I was saying to myself, what I'm feeling is anxiety.
Yeah.
I was waking up at 3 a.m. with palpitations, and I understood
Not fun, yeah.
these are the steroids. It's not me. But I remember one moment where I literally just knocked over a glass of water, and I could have just exploded. In fact, thank God there was no one at home,
Yeah.
because I was on the verge.
So yeah, but you know how I feel.
Yeah, so now I understand.
Yeah.
And I understand my wife even better now. Every time she tells me, and it's not you, it's me, but I'm going to explode.
That's sweet. That's sweet. At least she tells you.
Yeah, but she tells me way too often.
Right.
So how does it make you feel that because of, you grew up with a lack of love, empathy, etc., that has now created this condition that you deal with every day? Is there an element of blame that you assign to, or or do you just not really think about it, take it in your stride and deal with it on the daily?
If you mean, do I blame my mum? Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
No, if you mean, do I blame the guy that tried to steal from us in our house? Fuck yeah. I'm happy to assign responsibility to those who have, had an impact in my life. There's no doubt about it. If I had you'll notice with the majority of people who suffer from serious mental health issues, it all comes down to stuff in their childhood, right? Either bad house environment, bullying, rape, all these sort of different things, cause massive. And it's the same for me. And I absolutely assigned the blame where and rightfully so, I didn't speak to my mum for the last 9 or 10 years of her life. The relationship with my mum was always about her. I mean, we would have conversations, and she would just fucking ramble on about all her problems and all this, and we would have a conversation. She wouldn't ask me once how I am.
Yeah.
She wouldn't ask about my children. Jeez. She wouldn't ask about nothing, and in the end, she would ask for money. Right? So these were all the conversations that I had. And she used to, you're not going to believe this, when I would challenge her or something, she would be vicious. And she would fat shame me, and she would do all these different things. She would say the most hurtful things. And I must have been 36 or 37 years old, and I told her, we were actually in a really good place. And I told her, okay, maybe it's the time for me to tell her a bit about how I feel about the past. And I got about 30 seconds into that, and she turned on me big time.
Wow.
And she got abusive, and I hung up on her, and that was the last time I ever spoke to her.
You mentioned that she would fat shame you. And this is interesting, because I was going to come to this question. You have often mentioned to me about your unhappiness surrounding your physical appearance and
completely ashamed of myself. Yeah.
Can you elaborate a bit?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, from a physical standpoint, I'm a bit of a mess. I've got a lot of skin that overhangs, which causes a lot of problems with confidence, with even things like urinating, with having sex, with all these different things. There's probably a way to fix it, but it would be expensive. Plastic surgery to remove such things, you're talking probably in the high thousands to get something like that. I still think that I'm too heavy to even try doing that, because you'd need to lose more weight before they can do such a surgery. So yeah, and it's something that's grown over the last 15 years, the skin thing, and it's uncomfortable. It makes wearing clothes uncomfortable. It makes buying clothes a nightmare. You can sit here, I've always got this thing down here, which is unnatural. That's always there. So yeah, it sucks, man.
Do you think your emotional state is connected to your eating habits, maybe?
1,000%. Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
I eat I eat out of emotional distress. And the unfortunate thing is I'm emotionally distressed most of the time.
Yeah. So you're conscious, you're aware that, listen, I'm feeling like this, and this makes me feel good, so I'm just gonna go for it and fuck it, and let's see what happens.
Yeah. That thought process doesn't even happen anymore.
No.
It's such an addiction. It's such an addiction that I'll be walking to the kitchen saying, no, you can't do this. No. And my body just does it. It's nuts, eh?
Yeah.
Absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
I so wish it wasn't the case. I've tried so hard to work on myself for years, but the trauma is so deep that even 15, 20 years of therapy, and I'm still here, man.
In the last episode, we mentioned that we spoke about your routine, how you often and consistently manage to wake up at 4:30 a.m. You go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I'm not that consistent.
I mean, these
Let's
are,
make it clear,
but still,
do it.
these are little wins. You know, actually, they're bigger than little wins. You know, how important is that for you, to have that kind of structure, to have that kind of, okay, first thing in the morning, let's get out of bed, let's go and attack the day. How important is that for you, for your mental health,
It's clearly very helpful. Very, very helpful. I enjoy it when I do it, and I feel better when I do it. So it's really one of the only things that really saves me is me going through these cycles and doing these things. The unfortunate thing is, and this is the craziest part about all my mental health problems, and I've been open about my mental health problems before, but I don't think anybody really understood the depth of the problems. And I don't say it to garner sympathy. I don't want anybody's sympathy. You know what I mean? I just want people to understand that, it's fucking hard, man. It's hard. But anyway, these things are absolutely 100% helpful. But the problem is that somewhere deep in my subconscious, there's a part of me that just wants to sabotage the living fuck out of me on a daily basis. In the deepest part of my core and my soul, I believe I am not deserving of good things. So I do not allow myself to either have good things in my life, or if I do, accept them. And that is the reality of my situation.
And that brings guilt, shame.
Everything, man. Everything. My life is garnered around 3 specific emotions: guilt, shame, fear. They control my entire life. That is the construct of my psyche. Guilt, shame, fear.
Talk to me about fear.
Scared of everything, man. Scared of living. Scared of confrontation. Scared to leave the house. Scared to jump into projects. Just always scared, man. It's just a part of me.
You mentioned scared of living. Okay. Were there ever times where suicide was at the forefront of your mind?
I've thought about suicide a lot, but I've never contemplated. Okay?
Yeah.
I've thought about it in the sense that, I'll be in the absolute depths of despair of sort of my mental health, and I start thinking, oh God, people who have committed suicide, I can so understand it. Just I'd do anything right now to remove the pain.
Yeah.
I'd do anything. But the funny thing is, along with fear is a lack of courage. Courage is intertwined with fear, and it is that fear and lack of courage that has probably saved me. I just never had the guts to do it, I think. But I was many times in my life, a position of desperation to do anything to take away the pain. And unfortunately, a lot of the time to do that, I turn to drugs and alcohol and stuff like that.
I see. How important has your journey through therapy been?
Life-saving, very important. I mean, first of all, it's an external voice. It's an external person to listen who's not a part of your inner circle. I think that's very, very important.
Were you open to it from the get-go?
Yeah. Once I understood,
Okay.
it was only in my late 20s that, mental health really, that it was a topic all of a sudden, and, I give my wife so much credit for this because she said, babe, you've got to get some help. You've just got to get some help. I see you. And this was before we were even married. And for the life of me, can't figure out what
Sweet your wife.
I can't figure out why she would marry a troubled soul like me, but she did. And she's been there every step of the way. And I don't know how she does it. Because putting up with me is something.
But you fail to see the immense goodness that there is in you.
Apparently there's a lot too. People tell me I'm great, that I'm loving, caring.
From my point of view, you're a fantastic guy. You have a really, really kind heart, personally, if I didn't feel comfortable around your presence, if I didn't feel that your heart was in the right place, we wouldn't even have started this, So, yeah.
But it's an eternal struggle, right? So I love everything except myself. That's the reality.
So if I had to ask you a question, like, what makes you happy? What excites you?
The honest answer?
Yeah.
Very little.
But I've seen you excited over here.
I'm very good at putting it on.
Yeah.
Sitting down here talking to you, I'm enjoying it. But at the core of me, is just this rock hard pile of unhappiness that's always there. That really makes it difficult for me to, I will look back on this or any situation and say, oh, I enjoyed that, but I don't actually feel the enjoyment. It is sort of superficial. Does that make sense? When I have fun, it's superficial. When I am happy, it's superficial. It's there. Other people feel it, but I don't.
That's a sense of over analyzing. I can't explain, because sometimes I also go too deep into my mind. It's difficult to describe. It's like I live inside my head, but my body is the exterior that I can't get out of. It's like my consciousness is...
Well, we all have a subconscious, right? And this is the subconscious controls the body, and the conscious controls the mind, right? So subconscious is built from the first whatever years where you start getting into a routine, and that routine becomes your subconscious, right? So your body reacts in a certain way. You wake up in the morning, you go and brush your teeth, right? You don't think about brushing your teeth. You just get up.
You work out of habit.
That's your subconscious, right? At work, right? So we all have a subconscious, and it all makes us feel and do things. It's just different for people, right? Different people, because it's all based on what you've experienced.
So before you mentioned you're often fearful. Okay, you're sitting down with me. You're saying that you enjoy it. But is there an element of fear while we're speaking, right? Do you feel like you're in a sense of fight or flight during this conversation, or?
No, not really. I mean, I've been in this type of environment, media, for a long time, so I can be pretty comfortable in this kind of space. I talk without problems. I can connect to people without problems. So yes, it doesn't. No, I don't feel fear or fight or flight in this particular situation. But the curse that the mentally challenged person has, someone like myself, is I'm constantly thinking 18 steps ahead.
Okay.
So I'll leave here. This is a fundamental distraction for me. I can see this is a point. I am probably right now in a great mental headspace because I'm completely distracted. And so I'm feeling fine.
Yeah.
Feeling fine. Once I leave here, I'll start thinking about, okay, work, selling the house. What will happen if this, and this happen? And what will happen if this, and this, and this? Sometimes I think so far ahead. I will find a skin tag on my body, and for me, I've had cancer for 10 years. That's how I emotionally think of it. I've gone straight to the fact that I have cancer and I'm going to die. That's the way my mind. I will hear something on my motorcycle and I'll say, oh, the engine's going to seize. I'm going to have to replace the engine. It's going to cost me 2,000 euros. And I know jack shit about
That's a
motorcycles.
sense of lack of control for you.
And my mind just races. It is. I have an overactive central nervous system. I have an overactive sympathetic nervous system. Everything I have is overreactive. So this is the biggest problem. This is what we are still trying, and this is what I take medication for now to try and control. And I'm on some pretty decent medication now for, I've been on antidepressants for nearly my whole adult life, from mid to late 20s onwards, but never on the serious stuff that I'm on now. And the serious stuff I'm on now because I got to a point around Christmas time of not last year, the year before, where I was, bad. I didn't know how to live anymore.
Jeez.
I was internally a disaster. And again, I started off, I was still doing therapy, and the therapist said, listen, you should see a psychiatrist. Right now you need help. You can't do it by yourself anymore.
Yeah.
So I started on this regimen of pills, and it's definitely helped desensitize me, which has helped a lot. Helped a lot. Yeah.
Good. Okay, I want to veer away now. Okay?
Veer away.
Yeah, I want to change the subject slightly.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about...
I was 14 and a half when I lost my virginity. Oh, no, we're not going there. Sorry.
No, I wanted to talk about your business, the business that you created with your partner. Maybe you can tell us a bit about how it all started. I really want to know who came up with the wise guy name.
Bigwig?
Yeah.
What do you mean, wise guy name?
It sounds quite wise guy to me. It's quite...
Okay. Well, I'll tell you my recruitment story, if you like. So, the reason I'm in recruitment is because one of my very closest friends, Carl, has been in recruitment since he was like 18. And he had joined an American firm here in Malta that was doing proper headhunting. And I had known Carl since he was like 16. He's like a few years younger than me, but I was like 20 and he was like 16. And I had come to a crossroads in my media career. I was working with, you remember Island Sound Radio?
Mm-hmm.
I was working with Island Sound Radio, and at the end of I started working in 1995, and at the end of 2002, it was just falling apart. The station was falling apart. The management was fucking useless, to be quite honest. The ownership was useless. And I had found myself in a situation where I was getting married that year, 2002, and I had booked my leave for my wedding and my honeymoon 1 year in advance, and 1 month before they canceled it. So I went straight upstairs, I wrote out my resignation letter, handed it on the desk, worked off my notice, and that was the end of my Island Sound career.
Okay.
Coincidentally, I think it only lasted 6 months more before it completely collapsed and closed down. I'd like to say that's because of me. They missed my talent so much that it just fell to shit. But anyway, so I was in a transition period, right? So Island Sound had ended, I was full-time with Island Sound. Okay. I was head of programming or something like that. Jay was head of production or something like that. And it was basically me and him working together to do loads of stuff. And I was at a crossroads, and I was like, you know, I was thinking to myself, this radio is really unstable. You know, I can't see myself banking my whole life and career just on working radio. There's some very loud noises going outside here, but we are in an authentic space, Mike's garage, and there will be some noise.
Studio.
Mike's
Studio garage.
Good ear entertainment.
Good ear.
So Mike,
entertainment.
I didn't forget you. I'm the presenter today. Trust me.
It's coming.
Han är den för något alltså.
You got it.
Yeah.
Good ear entertainment. Okay. And so I decided, yes, I need to pursue another career. At the same time, myself, Jay, Cliff Brooks, and a few other guys from the radio, we were already in talks to start up the first version of XFM here. But again, I said, I'm never going to do full-time radio again. I will always do it part-time, but I'll never do it full-time.
Yeah.
So Carl, my good mate, had been sort of chirping in my ear for a good 6 months about, dude, you should come and join me do recruitment, man. You'd be really good at it. You've got all the skills you need, you know, the way you talk, the way you communicate, man, the way you connect with people, you should do it.
Yeah.
And at that point, I just arrived back home from my honeymoon, and I was like, what am I going to do? I knew this XFM project was coming, but that would be like 3-4 hours a day. What am I going to do? And I said, to hell with it. Let me try this recruitment. In the meantime, Carl had broken off from the main company and started his own little company, which was just me and him. Sort of flexed to me and him. Then we had a few people, but for the course of the 17 years that we were doing it, me and him were together. And I started there. I got the training. I started working as a specialist for investment banking Germany. So none of our business was here. We were only based here. So our clients and all of our candidates were based abroad. And that was it. And I worked with him for 17 years like this, self-employed. Okay, I've always been self-employed, commission basis only.
How does that affect you? I mean, the nature of self-employed. You know, you're working on commission basically.
Yeah. It's fucking hard, man.
Yeah.
And you know, you'll have one good month, 2 shit months, then a great
But
month.
how does that add to the stress and everything that you're already dealing with?
Look, so I started being self-employed when I was like 28, 29. Okay. For the first 10 years, it really fucked with me mentally. It was hard to deal with, you know, it was scary. You don't know when your next money's coming. You know, it was tough. It was really, really tough. But then I sort of got to a point that I knew that if you average it over a good period of time,
Yeah.
I'm doing well.
Okay.
You know, I'm doing quite well, you know, financially. So there would be months when I was not doing so great, and there would be months where I'd be, wow, that was great, you know, really good. So and I averaged out, and I was like, and I said to myself, okay, there will be the bad months, but you know that over the year you'll be fine.
Okay.
And now I sort of got used to it, you know.
And over there you have a team, right?
We have a team now, yeah.
Okay. How do you go about choosing the right people for your team? How important are the right characters?
Very, very important. In fact, the hardest part of our business is finding the right people to join us, because I think we might be the only one or one of 2 recruitment firms in Malta that have this structure, commission only. But we believe that we are trying to not get employees, we're trying to breed entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Because being a headhunter, being a recruitment specialist, when you're building up your own market, you're basically your own boss. I mean, we don't tell our employees, listen, there's a list of things tasks you need to do. No, we teach them, we guide them, we give them a market, we nurture them, we mentor them, but it's up to them to go out and make it happen.
I mean, the nature of your job, I mean, I assume that you become very good at reading people, reading characters.
Yeah, it takes time though, yeah. It takes time to garner that skill, but yeah, you get it.
What are the main things you look for when you've got a possible candidate in front of you?
To come and work with us?
Both. Because at the end of the day, you want to feed good people.
Yeah, the most important, I think the most important conversations that I have with people who are either going to be candidates of ours or come to work with us is, what are your motivations? What do you want out of life? Where do you see your future, man? You know, what makes you, what gets you up in the morning, you know? The unfortunate thing now is that society breeds a community or a population of workers. There are very few free thinkers anymore, man. There are very few people with the courage to build up their own business. You know, it's a tough thing, man. People are so bred into the system. You know, one of my favorite movies ever was The Matrix.
Why?
Why? Because
I'm trying to link.
Think about what The Matrix was, right? Okay, sure, it was a program built to keep people in humanity in check. Because obviously the AI, the robots, they were using us as an energy source. So we were put in this flood. But if you look at the Matrix, that's what we are. We are bred into the system where this is how you've got to be.
Yeah.
Everybody, there are different levels of control, but you're controlled from the top down to the bottom. So this is what it is. And
this is how we go to school, this is how we work, this is how we have to present ourselves.
That's it. And I think people lack the courage these days because of the way society has become to go out and express themselves. And, you know, you find I would say a good 96, 97% of people are just part of the machine.
So would you, would you, when you are recruiting either for yourself or for you're recruiting for a company, it doesn't make a difference to me. Would you push someone or go for someone who has a great CV but lacks motivation, lacks drive, maybe is a bit arrogant? Or would you go for someone with maybe a less spectacular CV and shows motivation, shows a drive?
It's always dependent on what the client needs, obviously. However, it's always got to be a mix of both. You can't have one without the other. If you have a great CV but no character, no drive, no motivation, someone might hire you, but it'll blow up after a while. You know? If you've got all the tools, you're hungry, but you don't have the right CV for the role, you're not going to get the job. Or if you do get the job, it's going to blow up after a while because you don't have the experience. So it has to be a mixture of both. What I'll say is the biggest red flag, and there's too many of them in this day and age, is people who are professionals, candidates, who are just chasing the money train. Who are just looking for that next pay raise, for that next bit of money. These are people we try not to work with. For the simple reason is that a client is trusting us to try and find them the best candidates. Now, we cannot control or be responsible for the actions of any human being. We just can't do it. But we'll try and use our skills to find them the best people. What clients are paying us for is for our research, not to guarantee the candidate, right? They're paying us for our research, the work we do, the network we have, the database we have, and the process that we go through to try and ensure that the best candidate will end up with the job and will hopefully stay for a little while. But there's no guarantees in this life. We offer our clients guarantees. Don't get it wrong.
Exactly.
But, you know.
I really like. I had Toto Wolff, CEO of team boss of Mercedes.
I like listening to him.
On another podcast. I'm not going to mention the other podcast because it's a rival podcast.
Okay.
The High Performance podcast.
That's rubbish.
Rival podcast. And he says he was asked how do you recruit? He goes, yeah, of course the CV is important, but I recruit through the eyes. I look into the eyes and see if it's for me or not. You know, which I find really.
You know, there's a thing called body language, right? It's a big thing too. You know, I look for body language as well. How confident is a person with me? Because a person's confidence with me is going to reflect on a person's confidence with other people. So I look at that as well. Body language is key as well, but you're dealing with human beings. So what I try to explain to people all the time, you're dealing with human beings, man. They're complex, man. And, you know, I've had people who have spun me the greatest story ever, and I bought into it. And after 2-3 months, they fucking let me down massively. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they were so convincing.
Yeah.
So convincing. So there's no hard and fast rule, but what we have in the company is a process where and it's a detailed process where you lower the percentages of failure. Let's just say.
Yeah.
So that's basically sort of how we're structured, how we work. But again, going back to it, we have great clients, we get good business coming in. Our biggest problem is finding people who have the courage to work in our industry. That's the hardest part.
That is true.
That's the hardest part for us.
Yeah.
Biggest challenge we face from a business point of view.
Yeah, I totally understand.
If there are any courageous people out there who want to, I'm gonna do a plug now, all right?
Go for it.
Why not? If there are any courageous people out there looking for a career path that gives them meaning with flexible hours and unlimited commissions, you got to get in touch with me, man. If you have the courage, I don't want people to, if you don't have the courage, you don't believe in yourself, you want to be a part of the machine, not for us.
Cool. Well, Mike, che vedi? Vedi?
Yeah, we're asking it live now, the question. How are we doing time-wise, Mike?
1 hour and 12 minutes.
So we've got about 20 minutes left?
Yes.
About 20 minutes left, man.
Okay.
Get to the juicy stuff, Hogg. We got to some juicy stuff already, didn't we?
Yeah, I've got nothing left, man.
You got nothing left. Okay. You asked me about how we came up with the name of the company, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we started off with a list of about 60 fucking names, right? 60 names. And we just kept whittling it down. And it came down to the fact that a bigwig goes back to tribal days. The bigwig was the guy who was the most important person in the tribe or clan. Everyone looked up to him. He had the highest position of importance.
Okay.
And that's what a bigwig is. It would, in I think Native American times, the bigwig had the biggest headpiece, the biggest whatever. So that's what a bigwig is. And as a business, we work on mostly executive roles. Mm-hmm. So we are looking at bigwigs, So that's how we came up with bigwig, yeah.
And you use pink as the main. How come pink?
We want to be able to. So originally, here's a good story. I don't know how much I can say about this, but originally we had our logo was black, white, and pink. We had this massive stag as our logo.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
Remember that? And one fine day, one of the world's biggest and most recognized alcohol brands decided to sue us.
What?
To remove the stag from our logo because it is also their logo.
Hmm.
And so we went through the whole lawyer process and whatever, and our lawyer said, you are going to try and fight a beast here, just change your logo, man. Just change your logo. That's what we did. So now we have an owl, a really cool, the eyes of an owl, and we really love our logo. And, we try to appeal to everyone. So, pink is in there, black is in there, masculine, you'll find masculine, feminine traits within our branding. Mm-hmm. It was very well thought out. And I got to say a big shout out to Julia, who's done all of our branding from day one. So Julia's amazing.
Nice.
And so that was she helped us get the brand concept. Obviously, me and my partner fuck all of our marketing and branding and all this stuff. So she helped us out with that. But that's sort of how it came up. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so shall we jump to the last part of our structured podcast?
If you have no more, I've got to say, you've handled this very, very well, man.
Thank you. While you weren't in a state of fight or flight, I have been all throughout.
Have you been nervous? Really? Tell me a bit about that. How are you feeling? Because
I am nervous in every podcast that we do.
How do you feel physically when you're nervous, though? What does it do?
I feel a bit uptight. I feel the surge of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I do.
You get any tightness in the chest or anything like that, or it doesn't go that far?
No, it doesn't go that far. It doesn't go that far. But as I'm approaching the garage studio,
the garage studio,
I start to feel that.
Really? Okay.
A change physiologically.
Yeah.
But it's all right. I mean, once again, I have always been like this. When I'm, to a certain extent, putting myself out there, right? Especially when, being a footballer, when I used to have to go on TV and speak in Maltese, Jesus Christ, the anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah. And...
well, being in the public eye is not easy.
No,
it's never easy. I mean, it's... I used to get really nervous before, not going on the air, but when I was hosting events, and there were some big events that we hosted as well. I mean, I was on stage before Giovanotti and not Iron Maiden, but there was that summer series. Remember, they brought, I think it was, they brought 3 or 4 bands, and I think I was on for 2. Not Alanis Morissette, it was that Alana Miles. I presented Alana Miles, and I did a lot of presenting over the years, and I would get nervous before that, but as soon as I stepped on stage, boom, gone.
Yeah.
All gone.
Yeah.
Completely in the zone. So that was pretty cool. But, again, something you have to get used to. And I imagine you as a footballer, you have to do post-match interviews and all this sort of stuff. Did you get anxious with those as well?
I mean, I would have wasted most of my nervous energy before the game leading up.
Yeah.
So after the match, it was more manageable.
Yeah.
But I was never super confident in front of the camera. The camera for me was a distraction, and then I become very self-conscious.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I believe so many people struggle with this,
No, it's not easy. It's not a natural thing for people, yeah.
No.
So.
But then again, I mentioned that the podcast itself, to a certain extent, gives me a bit of anxiety. But our motivations for this podcast isn't for us to, or for me, because it's harder for me than it's for you, for me to look good. It's because we want to provide a product, or you know what I mean, a service. So that eases my nerves a bit more.
That's good.
But yeah, I'm dealing. I mean,
You've done very well today, man.
Thank you.
Very, very.
I appreciate
it. I must admit, I didn't think you had it in you. No, you really.
I prepared myself.
You did very, very well, man.
Thank you.
Very, very well. And we're going to, maybe in 10 episodes' time or so, we're going to do the reverse.
Sure.
And I'm going to ask you loads and loads of questions.
Yeah, we can do that.
And pick into your background, both as a person, as a family man, and as a football. Obviously, I mean,
We should.
I'm a massive football fan, so I'm going to be asking you lots of questions about that. Should we do we're going to still do our thing, right?
Okay, so before we go to our thing, I want to say thank you to Mike, producer Mike, owner of Goodyear Entertainment. Goodyear Entertainment.
Come on, man.
It's good ear, not good ear.
Come in, Mike, come in.
Goodyear Entertainment. Shana Mike.
How is it going so far? Okay? Or?
Good. Is everything still
yeah.
working while you're not in the booth?
Yes.
Everything is still functioning.
It's in automatic. You see the red light?
How comfortable are you in front of the cameras?
Not so much, it seems. You sat down and suddenly you became an actor. How are you all doing today?
What are you on about? I'm a lecturer. Lecturer poser.
Lecturer poser. We should do one with Mike one day. What do you think?
Yeah, we should, for sure.
He's got some experiences. I don't know how much you can talk about him, but he's got some experiences.
You know who's the real star of the show, but I don't want to steal your limelight.
First time I have it.
But we upgraded. I mean, we started all crouched up in there, and look at us now, basking.
No, it is really cool, and honestly, grazie, thank you
You're welcome.
to Mike that he's so invested in this, and every time we come here we find something new. It's a really nice journey,
and I'm happy to say it, but it also pains me to say it. This is only possible because of Michael.
Yeah.
Without him, we would have never got this off the ground. So cheers, buddy.
You are welcome. I have a lot to do, but when I see this thing coming together, I feel so much like I did something good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I know that someone out there, like you said, is going to benefit from this.
For sure.
So
For sure.
yes, I think we're doing something for the greater good. You know?
Loving your work, man. Loving your work. No, we're not going to do this every episode, right?
You want me to go away?
2 more minutes. We'll give you 2 more minutes.
Guys, something I need to bring up. I know that we spoke about suicide today, some hot topics, and I think it's important to let everyone know that number one, we are not specialists, so take what we say not as
it's just our opinions
Yeah.
and our experiences, but I think what Andrew's trying to say is that if you are really wanting to get help, then go to the professionals.
Yeah.
You know, reach out to a psychologist, reach out to a psychiatrist, reach out to the Richmond Foundation. They have a helpline.
Yeah, they have a helpline. The number is 1770.
Thank you for remembering, because I had forgotten once. I've called it a couple of times. Huh? Very helpful. They talked me off a ledge, not literally, but of an emotional ledge a couple of times. Yeah, a couple of times. So they're really great. So 1770. Just get help. I mean, the message I always want to give. It's such a lonely disease. And it is a disease. I want people to understand that and remember that it's a disease. It is a lonely disease, and sometimes you feel so isolated and you don't know how to talk about it. Just first step is just talk to someone, anyone. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed of what's going on with you. It is not a weakness. It is a real illness. Like you would go to a doctor if you have a heart disease, or if you have a tumor, or if you have multiple sclerosis. You need to go to a professional for this. Don't do it on your own. Go and get some help, please.
Yeah.
All right. So are we doing our BET and whatever? I've got my stuff prepared.
Thank
you, Mike.
So the part of our episodes where we give our recommendations about either a book, an episode, or something that we've seen on television.
Yeah.
And something that's in our toolbox that helps us on the daily to remain in check. So you want to tell us yours?
Sure. So there's a podcast which I found about a year ago. It's called Better Together with Maria Menounos. Okay, she's this wonderful woman who...
she sounds wonderful.
Maria Menounos. I think she's American, but Greek, probably a Greek background or something like that. Her mum had brain cancer. She had brain cancer. They both survived it. And she basically talks... She started the podcast to build a community of people who could heal together and obviously help each other to heal. And it's a great podcast all round. Okay, there's like some 600 episodes up now. It's been going on for a while. It's very highly rated. But there's one particular episode as well, which is called it's number 540, and we'll put this information in the description below. It's episode 540. It's called Natural Ways to Overcome Anxiety and Depression with brain specialist Dr. Amen. I think I mentioned this guy on the podcast in one of the previous podcasts. This Dr. Amen is amazing. He's a psychiatrist. He's got about, 5 or 6 major clinics around the United States. And I think he has a couple abroad as well. And the way he talks about mental health, he doesn't actually like to call it mental health. What does he call it? I can't remember, but he doesn't like people saying you've got mental health problems, or he frames it in a different way. Yeah. And he gives so much insight, and he gives so much help into how tools you can use, like the cold therapy that I do came from him. Yeah. It was his suggestion. So that episode is called Natural Ways to Overcome Anxiety and Depression with brain specialist Dr. Amen. Super.
Cool. I also have a podcast entry. I really like The Diary of a CEO. Okay. He interviews some really great people. And I'm talking today about episode 201, Stephen Fry. And it's Stephen Fry. And it's titled Lost, Alone, and I Wanted to Take My Life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I heard it. Honestly, it's really interesting. And I suggest this episode because it is evidence that these circumstances can happen to anyone.
Absolutely. I like Stephen Fry.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. I like how he's so open to super guy.
Yeah. In fact, he is very open in this podcast.
I'm going to listen to it for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, that's great.
Great.
Toolkit, yeah. Okay, so I thought about this a lot, actually, what I wanted to do, because, you sort of start thinking, am I running out of ideas? But it's a very simple one today. It is unplugging yourself from technology. 30 minutes a day. Read, write, cook, walk, cycle, whatever it is. Put your phone away, put your laptop away, turn off the television, and just unplug from technology for minimum 30 minutes a day.
Just be.
Yeah. That's it. Just be.
Yeah.
When I'm cooking, it's one of the most peaceful times I have, because I've got some music in the background. I just chop, add ingredients, stirred, not thinking about all the. When you're on technology as well, you're constantly wired to what you're reading, what's going on, and usually you're reading work, news. It's never super positive stuff. Let's be honest.
Well, or else we are seeing a manufactured positivity that to us gives us a sense of I'm lacking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And this is we've discussed this before. The big problem with social media. It's all fake shit. Besides some of our guests.
But it's also difficult to get away from it. And even though that, for example, people have the awareness that listen, this is all manufactured. But then, I mean, I personally find myself going through and thinking to myself or catching myself in moments of, what am I not doing enough? You know?
There's this, these things will make you self-doubt, won't they?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why I stay off it as much as possible. I mean, I will use social media for this, for our journey on this. I use social media for work. But I stopped posting about more than a year ago.
Okay.
My last Instagram post, I think, was like 14 months ago.
Jeez.
I just said, what am I trying to achieve with this? What am I doing it for?
Yeah.
What am I getting out of it? And the answer to that final question was nothing. I'm sitting there hoping somebody likes my picture. I was actually one of those people. I would check my post who liked my picture. And I was like, why the fuck am I doing this? I have to like myself. What other people think doesn't matter. And now that's the good thing. Whilst I don't love myself, I really care less about what other people think of me now. And that helps.
Yeah.
Helps a lot. I'm not all the way there yet, don't get me wrong, but that helps.
Yeah.
What do you got in your toolkit?
Mine is a technique called the physiological sigh. Have you heard about it?
No.
Okay.
No, but I do some meditations where they ask us to sigh.
Okay. Yeah. I love breathing techniques and I use them with all the footballers, and there are multiple techniques. The physiological sigh is a technique where you fill your lungs up with air. Okay. Once you're nearly at maximum, you pause and take in a bit more.
Oh wow.
And then you release.
Oh wow.
And you can instantly feel the sympathetic nervous system calming down.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
I've read a lot.
Shall we try it together?
You want to do it now?
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you have to do?
So we're going to take in air until near maximum. Pause. Take in a bit more.
Okay.
And just release.
I'll follow your lead, okay?
Okay, ready?
Yeah. I feel fucking nervous. I'm wired. It's good.
It's good, eh?
Yeah. Do you know I get palpitations sometimes during my breathing exercises? Yeah. Strange, that.
It is.
Yes.
I can't.
It's the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve, what do they call it?
I call it the vagus, at least.
Yeah, the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
We'll get into that a bit more in another episode. The vagus nerve is something really interesting. It's the biggest nerve in the whole body. It controls everything, basically.
Yeah, I've read a lot into it. But all the information I've read about it leaves me right now.
Yeah, you can't think about it. And that's why.
But it happens often, no?
Happens to me all the time.
It's like, do you know the amount of times you ask me, hey, tell me a crazy moment of your life, and I just blank.
Yeah.
I mean, now because I'm relaxed, one time I went up with this on a slide with a skateboard.
Yeah.
Fell off the other side at the very top. Skateboard went somewhere else.
Yeah.
I was in hospital with.
You broken something? Did you break something?
No, concussion.
Concussion. Yeah. Okay. That explains a lot.
It explains a lot. I was 9 years old.
Oh,
my mom was freaking out.
Oh man.
Anyway.
This has been a super episode.
Yeah, it was.
Well, thank you for interviewing me.
You're welcome.
It was great. I'll interview you next time. We won't be on the next show, but sometime down the road we'll flip the switch and I will ask you loads of stuff. In the meantime, Good Ear Promotions is the way to go. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, dude. And we'll look forward to another super guest on our next podcast. Remember, all the information will be below in the socials and whatever. So thank you.
Take care, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.
The content of this podcast is intended for general informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of a qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. The information provided on this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or medical condition. The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the podcast host or producer. If you are experiencing a medical emergency, please call 112 or seek immediate medical attention.